Hi, I'm Vincent Rousselet from Amdocs. I'm delighted to be here today, and I'll be sharing with the audience two pieces of research we've done recently. One talks about consumers, and one talks about service providers and their view of customer experience. I'm going to be talking about two pieces of research we've done recently and trying to connect the dots. We heard a lot this morning already about the view from Joe around the consumer perspective. And also later on from Turkcell and from O2 around the operator's perspective. I'd like to just try and connect those two dots together and bring those two perspectives together. The two pieces of research I'm going to refer to are just things we do very regularly because we're very keen on understanding who our customers are doing, are thinking, and what they are really interested in as well. One is actually with the help of the 451 group. So this is going to be the consumer side of it. The other one is going to be about the operator, which is with IDC. And again, trying to thank the guys who helped me through that. So starting with the consumer, this is a survey we've done in 13 countries. We've interviewed 8,000 consumers and very much trying to understand their perspective around customer experience and how that works today, or maybe it doesn't, but also what they're expecting to see coming from their operators. And what's interesting, I think, is that they're really talking about something which is new and different and not quite what's happening now. And that could be characterized by three words. One is innovation. They really want to see a lot more around new services, new content perhaps, and also new ways of engaging with the operator. The next thing that they were telling us about is power to them. They really want to see an ability to actually change the way that things are happening. Again, whether it's to do with the service itself, the product set, and also the price, actually, not surprisingly. The third thing is, again, around personalization. So they're looking at how can this stuff be right for me as an individual. We just talked about segments and consumers and all of that. This is very much now at the forefront of what they are saying and asking. And what I'll put to you when I've looked at this consumer side is actually for operators to make these to meet this expectation, they really have to look at the transformation very deeply. And we've heard about transformation digitally. I think that's a very key part of making that happen. So let me just look at some of these elements. What we've been asking those consumers in the UK and other countries, this is data for the UK, by the way, is what's happening today and what keeps you where you are, or maybe what pushed you to go somewhere else. The one thing that came up first was a bit of a warning, actually, which was about would they be tempted to go after or to change the operator entirely. So if the likes of Google, Facebook, Apple, Amazon were providing connectivity, would they be prepared to go and leave their current provider? And resounding actually yes there. And you might say that's a very scary number at 60%. Actually, that's good news in a way because the UK is amongst the better results against that particular question. If you're in the Philippines, it's 78%, which is I guess, scary and dangerous. Now, the other thing to say about this data point is that this increased a lot on last year. We asked that question last year. This has really grown a lot, and I think the initiative by Google in particular around Google Fi in the US, Project Loon, I think has created a lot of awareness around what this might look like, and again, a bit of a warning there. We then asked about what makes you as a consumer, and I guess all of us here in the UK perhaps would be thinking the same, what makes you go away? Now, we heard about pricing already today, so perhaps no surprise there. We heard about network, so again, something important. Absolutely, the customer experience with customer service comes up here. But I think what's interesting in this particular question is how you can see, and I think we touched on this already, this issue of customer experience is actually very multidimensional. It's not just one thing, it's multiple things that have to be right all at the same time. So that makes you go away. What makes you stay was the next question. Rewards was a big thing. The question of self-service, again, I heard about that just now, very important. Being told about something that may go wrong. So, very simply, if you know that you're going to be doing an upgrade of some sort, and we heard about the 4G launch very soon in Turkey, well, tell the guys, because something may possibly happen. The other thing I would say about here, again, multidimensional, not just one thing, but multiple things to get right, but also very narrow range between 46%, the top question, to 38, the number 5. So again, very little to say, well, I can just look at this and fix that. I have to look at all of that holistically and make it work. And then what would make you recommend? So again, an important part of all of these experience dimension. Again, the brand, importantly here, and we heard about tone of voice and so forth. Pricing, again, and it's interesting how that actually in the UK, again, UK numbers, it's actually a lesser issue than perhaps globally where it's 56%. And again, network. So it was good to hear earlier that our colleagues here are already friends with the network colleagues within the operations, but that's a really important point. I think I can't really underplay that aspect of how to get the experience right. It's about that alliance inside the operator across a number of functions, number of disciplines to make it right. Again, here, same point, very narrow range. Actually, you can't just say, I'll do one thing. I've got to do all of these 3 things together. So Mark said earlier, actually, there is no silver bullet. And in fact, that's reminded me, I joined BT just under 14 years ago. I'm not that old. And the gentleman I was working for at the time, the head of the unit, was a wonderful guy called Mike Langston. Some of you who were in BT in the late 90s, early 2000, might have come across Mike. And Mike had this phrase, which I think is very relevant to this research, which was that BT is not an or company. BT is an and company. You have to do this and that. You have to grow revenue and improve satisfaction and cut cost. And I think here we have something similar. Actually, this is the key. We have to do all of these things all at the same time. Now, we do know that we've heard about people being prepared to pay more for an experience. Perhaps there's also things around the content that you can provide to them, and how something which is, again, innovative and personal will drive revenue to some degree. 20% will be paying more for these sorts of things. So there's a way here of actually creating a better experience through that better content. And as I say, my proposal to you is really that actually to make all of this work, you have to then transform digitally to remain absolutely relevant. Now, we turn to then our question of, what does it take to win that battle? Because there is a battle that's going to be happening, as we heard earlier, with the competitor within the space, but also with people like, again, Apple, Amazon, and Google. So we then asked some service providers. We asked 81 service providers around the world about what they were seeing and doing around digital transformation. Now, the first thing I would say, and I would very much like to thank Claire here for this particular data point, which is that 82%, and this is not the IDC research, by the way, it's another piece of, thank you very much, Claire. 82% of people say, yes, transforming digitally is an immediate, critical, important thing we have to do. Fantastic. Very good. Now, when we asked them about, okay, you're doing something today, but is that connected to a strategy, an IT roadmap, something? 80% said, well, actually, no, it's not. In Europe, 80% of these projects around digital transformation are standalone. And the risk with that is that you start to build silos, you start to build disconnected experiences, which, as we heard just now, you then can't really wrap into a proper experience. So that's one particular issue. The second thing was asking around, do you have a strategy for digital? Now, I guess the good news is, in Europe, 65% said, yes, we do. Globally, only 54% said we do have a strategy for digital. It still leaves over a third of the operators saying we do not have a strategy, which, again, I'd argue that's a slightly problematic issue. And then we're digging a bit more into that particular point and said, you guys on the business side, is there a strategy? 64% said, yes, we do have a strategy. It's very clear. Actually, I wrote it. Yeah, of course we have. We asked the IT guys, do you see a strategy in your business? 61% said, well, actually, no, we don't have one. And sometimes I think the job of people like Amdocs and other vendors in the market is to actually help bridge that gap where there is actually such a disconnect. And it might just simply to do with timing or communication or whatever, but there is certainly there a difference. Now we then ask, so okay, 82% of you say it's an important thing to do, and you're doing stuff today because we know 80% of it is actually standalone. So what are the big obstacles into moving forward with the transformation? Well, not surprisingly, the top factor was lack of strategy. I've said that already. The second was actually quite surprising to us because we know that a lot of work, and we do a lot of work as well with our customers around those digital channels. But the question here was, well, if consumers aren't adopting those digital channels, what do we do? How do we promote them? How do we make them the choice to contact, the way to contact us? So again, something that probably won't surprise too many people that are here in the room, but I think for us was, more work to do on connecting all of these dots and actually killing those obstacles as we want to move forward. And all of that so far is sort of quite okay, it just makes sense. Now, this is a picture that's on my way to dropping my daughter to school in the morning in Lambeth. And as I go up near Lambeth Palace, there's this wonderful sign there. And I'm thinking, so am I supposed to drive at 30 or am I supposed to drive at 20? And the next set of data points I want to share with you is where we started to be quite confused, I have to say. So we were asking, so who drives that transformation for digital? Now, it could be the chief customer officer. We went for the chief digital officer, and we asked, so is that important? Should you have one? 85% of Europe said, yes, you should have one. Good. Do you have one? Well, only 40% said, we have one. Again, quite good news in Europe, because if you ask the guys in North America, this is 95% on your left, and this is 14% on the right. And you start to think, okay, maybe something else should be happening now. Another 82%, so going back to telecom bingo here, the same number as Claire, but different question. So you have no CDO, nobody running this digital, you have possibly no strategy, and yet 82% say that they are either ahead or, as good as the rest of the industry. And I think this goes back to a point we heard a number of times already, which is we as consumers do not benchmark our experience in this sector. We benchmark outside the sector. And I think there's a bit of a danger here that we feel good because we think we are doing the right thing, but actually, I would argue that's not quite right. The next question was, how long will it take you to actually complete that transformation and get all of these things right for the consumer that we heard about? 48% said it's going to take us 5 years or more. Okay. Now, 5 years is a long time, although we did hear that it probably took 6 years, too, which is good. Now, I did share this data with a couple of operators in Barcelona at Mobile World Congress last month, and they said, you can look at this in two ways. You could say that's far too slow because 5 years is indeed a very long time, or you could say actually it's exactly right, because if we did it too fast, we wouldn't be doing it right at all. We would be missing out on key aspects of this transformation. So a bit of an open jury on that. But my view is that 5 years is indeed a very, very long time. And I want to use here an example which is actually not in the industry. Going back 5 years, 2011, a KPI was 7. So this could be number of people having downloaded the app, or it could be number of people using the web to contact you, whatever. 4 years later, KPI 13, almost doubled it. Is that good? That's not too bad. Now, there's a little bit of another thing going on here, which is actually, having said 82% are saying, we're ahead of our industry, there is a worry, and again, this is in Europe, 6% saying actually we'll be outpaced by other industries. And in fact, when I look at this KPI, which has got nothing to do with telecom, oh, by the way, I'm French, sorry, I should say. So this is a French team on the left. This is in 2011, obviously. And this was the final, and it was so, so close. Ever so close. In fact, I remember we were flying into Japan with my family on that particular day, and we were in the Virgin Lounge, and we had to leave before the end of the game. I didn't know for 12 hours. It was very sad. Now, as you will remember, you probably don't remember, I don't know. Anybody English here? Sorry, all right. Anybody like rugby? Last year at the World Cup, France got kicked out in the quarterfinal, not even the final. And yes, we doubled our KPI from 7 to 13. However, the other guys did a bit better than that, which was a bit sad. And then, of course, a bit of theme here, because only last weekend, Saturday, we had the same thing. Double the KPI from 9 to 21, but the other guys did better than that. So the point is, do not benchmark yourself within your industry and look outside. So what? Now, there's a number of companies who are already doing very well. And I think I go back to my 5 years is probably too slow. My point is no time to waste. These companies, people we do actually do quite a bit of work with, are doing very well in the digital transformation that they are driving. They're making money. We heard about, it's all about the money. Absolutely. And this trend of becoming more digital everywhere, again, us as consumers, our business customers are doing the same. It's all growing, and growing. So what are these guys doing that's right? So from talking to them, from understanding their perspective, 3 things really: clear strategy, building, sourcing the skills for digital, both internally, but also absolutely externally, because it is going so fast, you just can't do it on your own. So that was it. Thank you very much.